Welcome everyone to the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Emily Comer and a podcast engineer here. I'm excited to bring you another episode of Revolutionize Your Marketing with Mill City Marketing MA with John Petros that I've been doing here the last few months here. Talking all about marketing and how to promote your organization and get the word out about you and your organization. To kick us off, I'm going to bring John in. So kick us off and introduce us to our great guest today. So welcome, John.
Thank you, Emily. I love your background.
You.
Last night and tonight we are privileged to get a little bit of the northern lights in the skies for some pretty colors. I've actually got some pretty good pictures thanks to my daughter.
That's cool.
All right, welcome everybody, and those of you who are watching live, if not, you're welcome. If you're watching on YouTube, the replays tonight, who's very knowledgeable in marketing, has a course he teaches in marketing. Let me bring him on. Welcome, Mr. Geoffrey Kent.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Why don't we start off with letting everybody know who you are, where you came from, how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I'm a semi-retired serial entrepreneur. People call what I do business coaching. At this stage of my career, I'm more of a mentor to entrepreneurs, trying to convince people to be as crazy as I am and do what I do. And when they decide to venture down this entrepreneurial path, I do what I can to leverage my network, my knowledge to give them the highest probability for success. So it's kind of what I do. But I've got a long career. I've been doing this for 5 decades. So I tell people I've studied entrepreneurship, I've taught entrepreneurship, and I've done entrepreneurship. So I have an MBA from the Wharton School of Business. I triple majored, but one of my majors was entrepreneurial management. In the 2010s, I taught entrepreneurship as an adjunct professor at Lincoln University. So I taught 5 courses in both international and domestic entrepreneurship. And I launched my first entrepreneurial venture at the age of 12 in 8th grade. And over 5 decades, have launched more than 20 ventures. I sold my last company 11 years ago. It was a private cloud computing information technology business called Cognos IT. So I launched it in 2007, morphed it into one of the fastest growing companies in the world, and sold it 6 years after I launched it. And so now, as I said, I spend my time trying to help others.
And I have to say, you do a very good job at doing that.
Thank you.
I've heard from many people the help that you've given them to move their business and make it bigger and better.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I find lots of ways to relate to people, partly because of all of that I've just told you, but I'm also a military brat. My dad is a career Air Force officer, been retired for a long time. He's 97 now, suffering from dementia. So I spend 5 days a week at my parents' home helping my 93-year-old mother take care of my 97-year-old father. My father, through his military career, afforded me the opportunity to live in 10 of the 50 U.S. states and 4 continents. So I've had an interesting career, and of course, they grew up during the Great Depression, so they did not take risk with their careers, did not raise me, my brother, and my sisters to take risks with ours. So I obviously very well educated, but started my career in corporate America, initially with Xerox and AT&T in sales and marketing. 11 years into my career, went back to school to get my MBA, and then worked for, a basketball player, Julius Erving, Dr. J, for a couple of years, and then went to Deloitte Consulting. And and then at the age of 41 decided, when I was working in corporate America, and dabbling in entrepreneurship part-time. I was struggling in entrepreneurship, but I loved entrepreneurship. I was doing really well in corporate America, but hated it. So I decided that I'd rather be happy than rich, and so I left Deloitte at the age of 41 and started to pursue entrepreneurship full time. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, because everything I've done, as an entrepreneur full time has been increasingly more successful than the last venture.
So you've been really busy over the years.
Yeah. No, I'm one of these busybodies that I have to be doing something all the time. So yeah, I'm constantly dabbling in things. I was talking to someone yesterday saying, "Hey, I'm semi-retired," and then I was talking about, I have a group on Lineable. I teach every Wednesday. I host a Smart Connect networking event on Tuesdays. I'm finishing up my first book. I'm about to launch a podcast. He's like, if you're doing all that semi-retired, what in the world were you doing when you were actually working full time? And I was like, well, I'm one of those people that has to have my hands in the fire all the time.
I hear you on that one. I know people that are around the clock working. My wife is one of them.
Okay.
The only time she gets to sleep is when she passes out.
Okay. Well, my guess is she loves what she does, and that's why she does it. And when you do what you love what you do, and what you do becomes part of who you are. Just and it's comes as natural to you as eating, breathing, and sleeping. So it's just what you do because it's who you are, and it's not work. So I'm kind of the same way. I've had people say, hey, why are you texting me at 2 a.m? And I'm like, I'm responding to the text you sent me at 1:59 in the morning. And it was like, but I was up late and decided, let me get some last texts out before I go to sleep. They're like, you should be asleep. I'm like, I was asleep, but I sleep lightly and I keep my phone on. When I hear something, I respond, I go back to sleep. They're like, that's not healthy. I'm like, well, it's healthy for me. It's how I work.
Yeah. So as far as marketing, what have you found is the best technique for marketing for businesses just starting out?
Yeah. So I do have my undergraduate degree is actually in marketing, and so I understand marketing, but what I do is broader than that. I really, I'm more of an operations person and finance person. So for me, it's about how do I help an organization get from launch to a desired exit, and then through that desired exit, um, secure their future, create generational wealth for their family. It's something I've done personally, so I like to teach people how to do what I've done. But in terms of marketing, um, you know, I always advise entrepreneurs, and this is kind of part of the blueprint for success as an entrepreneur, to leverage the relationships you have with customers. So if you can treat customers like beloved family members, and how you service them once they become customers, you'll transform them into evangelists. And what an evangelist will do as a customer, they'll buy everything you sell for the duration of the life of your business, but they'll also, and this is probably more important, they'll refer you to all of their peers, right? And why that's important is if you've ever spent any time in sales, that we as human beings don't trust salespeople, right? Because we don't understand their motivation for selling to us in the first place. And so you always put a brick wall up in front of a salesperson until you understand that they understand your pain point. They've matched a solution to your pain point, and in essence have your best interest in mind, versus being overly compensated for pushing whatever it is they're pushing on you. So the good news is that if you leverage your customers to sell on your behalf, and I always tell entrepreneurs, your customer base is the best sales force money can't buy, right? So when they will sell to their peers. And so, we don't put up the barrier that we put in front of salesperson when we're talking to peers, right? So it's leveraging, through how you treat your customers, infusing world-class customer service into what you do for customers, so that you can transform them into evangelists and then leverage them to sell on your behalf. It's also about forming strategic alliances with much larger companies that fall into one of four quadrants. They're either companies that provide products and services that complement your products and services. They could be, part of your supplier base. They could be your customers, or they could actually be your competitors, right? But forming as many strategic alliances with much larger companies who can't turn on a dime like you can as a small business because of the bureaucracy that's built into large companies, but they have large marketing budgets and are constantly accessing leads. So if you can get a source of qualified leads for your business, you know you can close the deal, do the bulk of the work, and then you can find a way to revenue split with your strategic alliance partner. It's a great way to market and build your business. And then last but not least, we don't think of the A team that we need to surround ourselves with to give ourselves the highest probability of success in the business. And so the A team could be potentially co-founders. It could be, your executive leaders. It could be managers. It could be your staff, advisors and mentors, and a board of directors once you form one. All of these people have a vested interest in the success of your business, right? So, if you can surround yourself with great people, and help them understand what the vision and mission of the organization is, they're going to go out in their free time and promote the business. Because if I'm an employee of an organization that I love, and I can just be at a cookout on a weekend or something, I'm going to talk about the organization I work for because I'm happy working there. And the better that organization does, the more secure my job is.
Yeah, I completely understand and agree with that. Whenever you're around people, that all it takes is one person to ask what you do.
Yeah.
And you start talking, and then next thing you know, there's more and more people listening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the hardest sale to make is a sale you're making yourself, because you're viewed as a salesperson when you're marketing your own business. So what you want to do is find other people who can sell on your behalf. So it's your customers, it's strategic alliance partners, it's the people you surround yourself with, that A team. Leverage them to sell on your behalf. You're still going to have to sell your business, but leverage those other mechanisms first, as a way to get traction in the marketplace. And then what you end up getting is a lot of name recognition. The more customers you have, the more great work you do in your community, the more your name spreads. Now with name recognition, the sales job becomes much easier.
Yeah, that's like, I've heard a few people mention three words in particular. And one of our mutual friends,
Mm-hmm.
Victor, bases his whole thing on know, like, and trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
pretty much what you were just saying. Your customers and your clients have to first they have to know you personally.
yeah.
And the more they know you personally, the more they'll trust you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I walk entrepreneurs through it's a really simple exercise, but it's incredibly poignant. And so I'll tell them, because it's, I'll get asked, well, how do you turn customers into evangelists, right? And I said, it's really simple. I said, think of, a business, a brand, something that you've been, really loyal to for a long period of time, and then when it could be a restaurant, it could be a car brand, whatever it is, but whenever you come up with that name, you know, then list down all the reasons why you're so loyal to that. Why have you been so loyal to that organization for such a long period of time? What are all the things that that organization does for you, that makes you that loyal? And then once you've listed all those things, here's the simple part. Take all those things on your list and infuse them into your business. And guess what happens? Your customers will become as loyal to you as you are to that business you've modeled after.
Yeah. And I was going to say something. I forgot what it was now.
Yeah, yeah, having your senior moment. Yeah, we all get them.
Yeah, and another part of it I've been realizing too is something I talked about a couple of weeks ago on the
Mhm.
podcast. Mindset.
Yeah,
Where you have to have the mindset to do what you're doing and do it the right way and do it correctly.
yeah,
And not only that, but once you know your mindset, it's easy to figure out the mindset of your customers and your clients.
yeah.
So you know where they're coming from.
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. It's all about. I like to start entrepreneurs with the journey of discovering whether they're passionate about what they do. Right. So someone will come to me and we'll start talking about the business, and maybe they're struggling a little bit in their business, and and as I discover, well, hey, do you love what you do? Oh no, I really don't. Well, do you think that might contribute to the fact that you're not successful? You know, if you took the time before you launch something to understand what are you passionate about, there are called all kinds of psychological tests, Myers Briggs, whatever. There are number of them that you could take to understand, what makes you tick. What do you love to do? And then when you're starting to investigate, all entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs. We all believe we have thousands of ideas. We come up with new ideas every day, and we think they're the best idea known to man. But as you start to percolate all these different ideas, it's you need to understand what makes you tick and what excites you. And so then as you start to filter through all these ideas, leverage the ideas or take the ideas that and act on those ideas that leverage your passions, right? Because again, when you love what you do. When you love what you do, it permeates every pore of your body, and that becomes incredibly attractive to the rest of the world. So it's much easier to succeed as an entrepreneur when you're starting from a foundation of loving what you do, right?
Yeah, it's true. That's like I spent maybe 17 years in retail.
Hmm.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Why? I like talking with people. I like knowing people, and um, that led me to be when the company I worked for those 17 years, when they closed, there was two people left in an empty store,
Wow.
me and the manager.
Wow. Wow.
And so he kept me around till the very end.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you can probably, I mean, this is you'll have to tell me, but I mean, so when you're in that store, if you can take yourself back to that time, if you loved what you did in retail, my guess is that permeated your being, and so you were you were excited when customers would come in. It would show on your face. You would talk to them in an excited manner because you genuinely, wanted to help someone versus someone else who worked in the store who hated being there, right? They were just, clocking time and 5 o'clock or whenever it is, at the end of their shift, they were gone by 5:01, right? And so, they're behind the counter. I'm sure they're not smiling. Sure, they're not, it's like a customer comes up to them. It's almost like a burden, right, to have to service them. So, if you're a customer and I see you and I see this other person, who am I going to gravitate towards? I'm not going to gravitate towards a person that looks like they're not having fun, right? So,
Yeah,
that's the key to, again, that's when you're starting in this, entrepreneurship is incredibly difficult. And so, why would you sign up for this if you didn't love it, right? You have to love it.
Yeah, you do. How I fell into marketing is kind of strange, unique, but yeah, you just never know where one thing is going to lead to.
Yeah, yeah. No. I've been saying a lot lately, just because of what's been happening with the business. Because we all have our best plans that we want to in our mind think where we want to take the business, and but the business goes where it's supposed to go. But this comes from a gospel song. It's let go and let God. And I've kind of those are my words of wisdom for now. It's just I've allowed to in my business and what I do on a day-to-day basis. I've let go and I let God, and what's supposed to happen is going to happen. Some incredibly positive things are happening for me and my business, but it's clearly, and I've told someone this fairly recently, that I couldn't have planned this if I wanted to, you know, um,
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
And give people an example of that. Where I am now, all started, believe it or not, from taking a cruise with my wife 7 years ago.
Okay.
I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
We had two little ones with us, so we ended up getting a 2-bedroom suite on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
Once you get a cruise ship, you don't go with anything less.
Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoyed it so much, I wanted to help other people.
Yeah.
Which is how so I became a travel agent.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So host a company. They gave me a website, kept specials on the front page and everything. I said, "Oh, this is great. I get customers in through them."
Yeah.
Not a one. So I heard people about putting ads on Facebook. So I said, "Well, how hard can it be?" I checked it out, figured it out a little bit, threw some ads together, paid off a couple of times, but nothing really profitable.
Mhm.
I ended up spending more than what I was making.
Yeah.
Then I bumped into a guy on the internet
Hmm.
who was in marketing for 15 years, and he was teaching a course
Yeah.
online. And he was just starting a certification course. So I took his course.
Hmm.
And that was 4 years ago.
Okay. Okay.
Now that's so taking a cruise got me into marketing
Yeah. Yeah.
in a roundabout way. But
Yeah. Go figure.
and now where does it lead now?
Yeah.
My podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'm working on a book myself, thanks to AI.
Okay. Okay.
This guy was incorporated AI into his course last summer,
Yeah.
2023. So I took his course again, and that got me a 46 page print ebook on customer acquisition.
Okay. Okay.
I got that on Amazon. Now what I'm doing is I'm going through, rewording it, making sure everything makes sense,
Yeah.
putting graphs and charts in it, and eventually that will be a book.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's time for you to book another cruise. I mean, if you got that much from the first one, imagine what you're going to get from the second one.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, even traveling, you never know where that's going to lead to. I have connections with somebody who I also have an affiliate link with. Um, she's a singer-songwriter,
Okay.
but that brought her to different countries around the world
Yeah.
on different radio shows, and her music's in multiple countries now.
Okay. Okay.
And as she was traveling around, she likes to cook. So she picked up a bunch of recipes from different nationalities and things,
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
countries. She put it all into a cookbook.
Okay. Okay.
Now she's got a 160-page e-cookbook,
Yeah.
which
Wow.
is in the process of coming out in print.
Okay. Okay.
So I have an affiliate link for her cookbook, which also includes comedy because she writes comedy too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
that's someone I don't need to meet because I like to eat. So the last thing I need is to is to meet someone who likes to cook. You know.
that that's just one thing leads into another. You just never know where you're
Right.
gonna end up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. We have something in common. Actually, my book that's I mean, it's completely written now. It's been in editing for a little while, so I'm hoping to have it in printed and available for the public before the holidays. But the foreword to the book is actually being written by a gentleman by the name of Benny Pugh, who's a very famous music producer. So he'd worked most recently with Rock Nation, which is Jay-Z and Beyonce's record label. So yeah, we definitely have. And I when I was much younger, one of my ventures in New York City was actually promoting jazz music when I was in my early 20s. So I have a huge love for the music industry.
Yeah. So, um, what else do I want to ask you? I meant to put them down when I thought of them, and of course, it doesn't happen.
Hey, you got to write stuff down. I mean, we're getting older, so we can't always rely on memory.
Um, anyways, any other comments you want to throw in about?
No, I don't know what else I could tell you. I mean, if anyone wants to get in touch with me and talk, and they can see on the screen here. My website is www.thinkbigwithgeoffreykent.com. I always have to remind people when Jeffrey spelled the old English way with a G. So I just think of the giraffe and Toys R Us. You'll know how to spell my name, but yeah, no, as I said earlier, I love what I do. I absolutely want to encourage more people to pursue entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship creates has for the last 4 decades created all global net job creation, right? So entrepreneurs are creating all the jobs, and so the world needs more entrepreneurs. And when people are brave enough to do what we do, I want to leverage. I've been very blessed, and so it's time for me to give back. So I want to do anything in my power to help anyone that is brave enough to venture down this entrepreneurial path to be successful. So I love talking to entrepreneurs and love encouraging them to keep doing what they're doing and helping them understand that you know uh, uh, you're going to hear a lot of no's, but every no gets you closer to yes. So persistence and perseverance are two of the most important traits in entrepreneurship. And you know you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep pressing forward, and eventually you are going to get where you want to go. So yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to mention about your course that I see there behind you?
Yeah. So um let me talk about how the course came about. So, I mentioned I went to the Wharton School of Business, got an MBA in entrepreneurial management. So, you know, going back a while before I was going to start my last venture, this cloud computing information technology business, I actually went back to the University of Pennsylvania's campus to talk to the 5 professors that had taught me different courses in entrepreneurship, and I went to talk to each one of them with the same one question. And the question was, if you were to give me one piece of advice that if I implemented it would maximize the probability I'd succeed in this venture, what would that advice be? So I had 5 incredible conversations with my professors. Each professor gave me a list of books they wanted me to read about scaling exponential business growth. I took the time, read every single book. When I finished reading the last book, and sat there and contemplated all that I had read, it occurred to me that, it was like I had read the same book over and over and over again, right? Successful entrepreneurs attribute the same things to their success. So at that point, I sat down with a pen and paper and jotted down all these repetitive themes that I had heard about through my conversations with professors and had read about in these books. And then when I launched this business, I said, because at that point I wasn't a believer, so I said, I'm going to infuse all these traits into this business just to see what happens, almost as a joke to myself. So I did that. And to my surprise, everything worked. Right. So what that taught me was there is a blueprint for entrepreneurial success. That blueprint is actually easy to find because, again, every successful entrepreneur is vain enough to write a book. Those books are easy to find on Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, whatever your local bookstore is. They're written purposely to be easy to read, so it's easy to understand what you're reading. Unfortunately, the blueprint is incredibly difficult to implement. And that's where entrepreneurs get bogged down. But again, through implementing this successfully myself, I realized that the blueprint to implementing the blueprint has everything to do with taking the time to understand your strengths, weaknesses, likes, and dislikes, and then customizing what you do in your business to what you are good at doing and what you like to do, and outsourcing everything else. Right. So that's a lot of what I do with entrepreneurs. As I said, took a venture from scratch, exponentially grew it to one of the fastest growing companies in the world, sold it 6 years after I launched it, 11, and that was 11 years ago. And so I decided, let me create a way to show entrepreneurs how to do what I've done, and that became a self-paced online 7-week course to walk entrepreneurs through, how would you start from scratch, exponentially gross a venture to a desired exit, so that through your desired exit, you could secure your future and create generational wealth for your family. So that's you can find that course on my website. But that's basically what I do. I walk people through that process and hopefully I'm helping create the next generation of highly successful entrepreneurs.
Well, that you will be as long as they listen to you.
Yeah.
Um, see if Kurt is sitting on the sidelines, if he has any questions to ask.
Kurt, are you coming
Kurt?
on camera?
So
I can do that.
yeah, Kurt's a real human being, not a computer. Right. There we go.
Welcome, Kurt.
He's alive.
There you
Oh,
go.
Kurt, my host.
Yeah, right.
All right. Thanks, John. And so Geoffrey, what is your dream? What is the dream you hold in life? What is your legacy, Jeff?
Yeah, my legacy, actually, that question was asked more than a decade ago by a very good friend at a business lunch, and he framed it a little bit differently. He said, "When you die, what do you want your legacy to be?" Which I thought was an incredibly morbid way to put the question, um, uh, but through kind of thinking through how I answered the question, doing a bunch of reading, ultimately started thinking about my daughters, who are in their 20s now, but were very young when I initially got asked this question. And so, the way I framed how I answered it was, what societal issue could potentially impact my daughters that troubles me today? And it was global poverty, right? So, and then doing a bunch of research about the topic, what leads to it, ways to resolve it. Basically, came to the viewpoint that what I wanted to do for the rest of my remainder on Earth was leverage entrepreneurship to hopefully eliminate global poverty. Right. Um, so if you understand the issue, 7.1% of the world's population live in poverty. There are 8 billion people on Earth, which means 568 million people live in poverty globally. Um, if you read a lot of psychology, you'll understand that psychologists believe we all suffer from implicit bias. So we tend to hire in our own self-image. Um, I know as an entrepreneur that, when you generate about $1 million in annual revenue, you create 10 meaningful paying jobs on average. So it kind of came to me. I said, well, what if I could identify 6 million entrepreneurs globally that come from communities disproportionately impacted by poverty, because one of the reasons why we decide to venture into entrepreneurship is you may hate the commute to your regular job, right? If you have to commute 1 hour each way, you may not like the commute. So, if you decide to quit your job and start up your own business, you're not going to bake in a 1 hour commute each way. You're more than likely going to start the business from your home or at least in your community where you could walk or have a short drive to your office. So, if you're going to launch a business in your community, more than likely because of implicit bias, you're going to hire people from your community. So again, if you come from a community disproportionately impacted by poverty and you can create meaningful jobs in that community through your successful business, you can have a positive impact on eliminating poverty, at least in your community. So again, the mechanics that I came up with was, if I could train 6 million, if I could identify 6 million entrepreneurs and train them on how to scale to 10 million in annual revenues each, so that they could create 100 meaningful paying jobs in their local communities. 6 million entrepreneurs times 100 jobs each is 600 million jobs. Oh, guess what? I just eliminated poverty, because I've not only created jobs for those 568 million people who are living in poverty, but we've created an incremental 32 million jobs globally. So that's what drives what I do. As I said, that's why I encourage people to pursue entrepreneurship, particularly young people. I you know, I when I sold my last business 11 years ago, I started doing some, due diligence on all the people that I'd hired and all the ventures I had done, and realized that I'd actually hired more high school and college interns than I had hired full-time employees over the course of my career. So I'm very passionate about convincing, particularly young people, to, as I said, be crazy as I am and do what I do. But once they venture down this path, I want to give them the blueprint to have the highest probability for success doing this. And if I'm successful, I think I can have a huge impact on solving the global poverty issue. So that's what drives what I do.
Fantastic. So John has, inspired us to come into this show mantra of revolutionize your marketing. And, what you're talking about there is very revolutionary. It is what the world needs. And, the old business thing, find a need and fill it. And
Yeah.
you're thinking big. You're living up
Yeah.
to your.
Yeah.
So what do you think the secret sauce will be on the marketing front to leverage marketing to achieve what you're describing here? What's that marketing genius that is going to make what you're talking about possible?
Yeah, yeah, I know. I think it revolves back to something I had said earlier in the conversation. It's not leveraging traditional marketing tools. I think I will use those, but it's leveraging other people to sell what I'm doing for me, right? So it's transforming customers into evangelists who talk about what I do. It's forming strategic alliances with larger organizations who have broader reach than I have, who can convey the message, right? And it's about surrounding myself with people who believe what I believe, and working with them so that they communicate the message, making sure they understand my vision, and so they can communicate the message in their private lives as well. If I do all of that, I think it'll create enough buzz. I mean, I always there's a kind of the game where we used to play in school, where you take one person, you tell them something, and then it's like, okay, now you tell one person something, and you just keep going, right? And but if it's not like if you say, okay, I'll tell one person, but I want one person to tell two people, and and you keep exponentially growing that, you realize that it doesn't take many iterations of that to get to the entire world, right? It's a smaller group of than you would think, a smaller number of iterations to reach 8 billion people than you would think. So I think if I'm able to excite my close network of customers, strategic alliance partners and coworkers to broadcast the message. That's going to be a great start, and then we'll leverage all the traditional advertising and public relations and all that kind of stuff. But I want to do, by the time I do that, I want there to be such positive buzz about what I'm doing that it's easy to get the kind of results that you would want leveraging those traditional marketing mechanisms.
All right, all right. So I'm going to come at something a little bit. I don't know. I don't know enough about you to really know where this is going to come for you. So I'm just going to, for now, call it off kilter while
Yeah, not a problem.
respond to this. But
Sure.
when we talk about disproportionate poverty and marginalized populations, disadvantaged, underserved, where there's unmet needs, and you're coming into this space, I specifically am a disability ally. And this has been something that's really grown in my life across the last decade.
Okay.
So I start thinking about people in the world that have an intellectual or developmental disability,
Right.
our deaf community, our blind community, people with physical disabilities. And then I keep unpacking it through people with a mental health diagnosis,
Right.
those living in chronic pain. Everyone out there that has a goal of substance use reduction, really get into the humanity of all this, humanitarianism, and just really dealing with the human element, and then now we're talking marketing. And I was in a conversation with somebody that I was really challenged to get my point through about use of marketing. And, it kind of was an interesting toggle between we're on the side of communication and then we're talking about marketing. And then I propose,
Yeah.
well, marketing is just formatting communication.
Yeah.
That's the way I framed it. So when you talk about, accommodation, accessibility, web content accessibility guidelines, all of this stuff is to help marketers consider, if they're formatting it right, to make it usable or ideal, if we're being proficient in getting people with disabilities to be our messengers. Because, I propose that 3 out of 4 people out there, are not naturally in that inclination.
Right.
So I propose marketing to say, we as the marketers, I'm hoping to get allies that say, yeah, let's nudge that. Where are you on this little, stretching the envelope side of things as far as respect to people with disabilities?
Yeah, I have not focused over the course of my career on people with disabilities. So it's an area that I don't have a ton of ton of knowledge about. But I guess my perspective in just dealing with people in general is that there's tremendous untapped potential in humanity that for whatever reason we tend not to get as much as we can. So as much as we've accomplished as a society and humanity over time, I think we could have advanced a lot further if we had tapped into the resources of all of humanity, right? So for whatever reason someone looks different, they act, whatever, we decide, hey, we don't want to listen to their voice. And I think that's a huge mistake. It's because I learn every day, and I learn from places that I don't expect to learn. So with me, I have this open mind that just says, hey, I want to be exposed to everything that I can be exposed to. I want to talk to as many people as I can talk to. I want to learn as much as I can learn. So I read voraciously. have done that since I was a very young child. As said earlier, I've had the benefit, pleasure, and honor to have a father who was career military, who's exposed me to multiple cultures. I've had the opportunity to live on 4 continents, 10 of the 50 U.S. states. So I've had the opportunity over the course of my life to meet an incredibly diverse group of people. I've actually lived, worked, and studied on 4 continents. So I in terms of interacting with people, I've interacted with people on a variety of levels. Because it's just not only living there, it's working with people that are from a different culture, or studying with people. Um, so yeah, my what I've seen, from seeing so much of the world, is that there's so much potential, and so much of humanity, and we really haven't, they you'll read stuff that says, we as humans have only tapped into 10% of our ability, and you'll see they have different movies that talk about, these, what would happen if someone tapped into 100% of their brain, and but I think that's possible. I mean, we were given all these tools for a reason. So obviously we at some point, if we're open and receptive enough, we can probably tap into all this. And again, it's we can learn from anybody. So yeah, I'm one of those that, again, wants to be exposed to as much as possible, wants to try to extract as much potential out of everyone I come into contact with. I love these conversations, love inducing these conversations to try to get what I can from people. So again, I don't know a huge amount about the disability community in general, uh, but I know that everyone has something to offer, and so we need to find ways to engage everyone in the world, and get what we can from everyone, because everyone has something to contribute. So I don't know if I answered your question. I
Oh,
apologize if I didn't.
yeah, I would say that you really you nailed it. I really enjoyed how you responded to that. Absolutely perfect. Staying within the
Yeah,
realm that you can represent and not over representing. But
yeah,
what
yeah,
that does is it draws people in, because now when they heard, that in thinking big, see, now you're giving space for people to do what you're saying.
yeah,
Think
yeah, yeah. No, I
that's
think.
not it's not look at Geoffrey Kent thinking big. It's think big with Geoffrey Kent. So
Yeah,
I like
yeah, yeah.
participating, with your content.
Right,
So
right. And I will have people, it's like, what does think big mean? It's like, okay, whatever it is you do, you could do anything, but whatever it is you do, at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, we solve problems. That's successful entrepreneurs solve problems for someone, right? So your business should be centered around, you discovered a problem that you think you can solve. You've come up with a solution. You validated it to know that your solution will actually solve the problem. And if you do all of that, you won't have a problem finding customers. But assuming you do all of that, whatever problem you solve with your business, think of what would happen if you eradicated the world of the problem you're solving. What kind of entity would you have to create to do that? How big of an entity? How many people would you need? What kind of tools would you need? So on and so forth. So if you start to think that way, that's thinking big, right? you know um and the great thing about thinking big is you may not accomplish 100% of your goal, but if you solve 10% of whatever the problem is that you're trying to tackle for the world, you're going to make a huge name for yourself, trust me, and you're going to do a whole lot of good. So, and that's the goal.
absolutely. Wow, John, I can tell how you two got together. Boy, big with Geoffrey Kent fits right into revolutionize your marketing. Boy, you guys are like two peas in a pod,
Yeah.
brother John. 'Cause I would say you think big, John. So, but I gather you're going to sharpen your pencil and keep taking notes from Geoffrey here, hey,
Yeah.
John?
I hope if I can learn from John, John can learn from me. It's a win-win scenario, and it's a good day for both of us. So yeah.
Big on one side, revolutionize on the other. Can't go wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait.
Right.
So,
That's
John,
how
what do you have next? I almost forgot this is your show. No, I didn't forget.
Yeah, yeah.
that's why I call you my co-host.
Yeah,
There,
yeah.
I gladly come into that capacity. Thanks,
Yeah.
John.
Co-host this week, host next week, right.
There we go. Now that's thinking big. I like it. It's not a hostile takeover, folks. We can
Yeah,
relax
yeah.
it.
Where did John go?
I'm here. I'm just taking it all in.
Oh, good man. So, John, how do you want to wrap this up? We're down to minutes here, so got a minute to win it. Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, like every week, except for last week, I didn't have a word of the day.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to one I used a couple of weeks ago, Kurt. Because being football season, football is the game. So if you want to be in the game, you have to have game. And by game, I mean gratitude, attitude, mindset, and energy. GAME. That's the name of the game. You agree?
Yeah, no, that's good words to live by.
I come up with a different word, usually a different word every
Right.
week.
Yep.
But I add a little spice to this.
Yeah. No. Yeah, and I'll add to that. It's not a word, but it's several words. It's as entrepreneurs and as human beings, um, and I'm forgetting who said this, but it's you are the average of the five people you spend the most time with, right? So as an entrepreneur, the way to translate that is, if you want to be successful in entrepreneurship, surround yourself with successful entrepreneurs and do what they do, right?
Yeah.
And you will exponentially increase your probability for success.
Yeah, I've heard that from many people.
Mm-hmm.
Even my mentor says that, and that's why he hangs around with the people he hangs around with.
Yeah,
They have
absolutely. Yeah, no, and I mean that applies to and if you have children, then you know how apropos that statement is, because when we were children, and now that we're parents and have children, you realize how many stupid things we do as children, and so when you think back on some of the stupid things you did, a lot of it had to do with who you surrounded yourself with, and so yeah.
just like a prime example of that is when my son was in high school. He used to skip classes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he used to skip classes, but hopefully it's something that me and my wife taught him was he had skipped class one day. The school called us.
Yeah.
And okay, well, I think I know where I can find him. I actually bumped into one of his friends after school.
Okay.
And he took me around some places where he thought he would be.
Yeah.
And he wasn't. Going back, so I dropped this friend off at home, and coming back home, going by the high school, I said, you know what? Let me drop in and see. Now, this was a Friday.
Yeah.
That'd be high school days. School ended on Friday. It was done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I went in. The principal was still there.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to him, and he goes, well, I don't know where we could be, but you know what? I have a hard time getting teachers to stay here on Fridays, never mind students. He goes,
Yeah.
I have one teacher here. Let me go see if she sees them. Guess who was sitting in that teacher's room?
Yeah. Your son. Yeah.
Skipped half the day, the last half of the day, but went back for extra help.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Does that make sense? Would you have done that when you were in high
I
school?
would not have done that, but it feels good to know that he at least had enough common sense to go back to get help. You know.
Another thing is, he used to call my wife's, and I'm going to expel him because he's been skipping too many classes.
Yeah.
She turns on and goes, "Why do you think he skips classes?"
Yeah.
So, because he doesn't want to be there.
Right.
So you're going to reward him by giving him a week off. That's what he wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he skipped again after that. He goes, he's John Jr. So the principal goes to him, "John, just getting in house. I'm not calling your mother again."
Yeah. 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 Well, I would have dug into that a little bit deeper, because a lot of times, a kid might do that because they're not being challenged in school either.
Yeah.
And so if they're really, really intelligent and they're not learning at a pace that they need to learn at, they're going to check out and find something else to do. So it could potentially be that your son is needs to be in a more challenging environment academically, so that he can tap into his potential. And maybe that's why, if he's not learning at the pace he needs to learn at, that could be why he's acting out that way.
Yeah. Well, he's in his mid-20s now, and he's had a couple interesting jobs
Mm-hmm.
getting cell phones.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah.
took a course on it. Never went to college or anything, but he was good at it.
Yeah.
He actually had companies in the mall fighting over him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so that actually might go to your son might be a lot smarter than you think he is. And so, and maybe he wasn't being challenged in school.
Yeah.
Because, when you're in, it's, the goal is to try to educate as many students as possible. So you teach at a certain pace. The problem is that, there are going to be kids that fall into the margins. There are going to be kids that are too bright, that, you're teaching too slow for them. And there are going to be kids that are, a little bit slower, that, you're teaching too fast, and those, that's going to be a very small percentage of the population. But, the way we teach to the middle, and so if your son was on that margin and he was one of those brilliant kids who needed to learn a lot faster, then, you you have to realize that, and then place them in the environment that's going to allow them to learn at the pace they want to learn at. And once that happens, that you're going to tap into their brilliance.
Yeah. All right. It's 6:00. I'm gonna let you go.
All right, sounds good. All right. Well, thank you very much for having me on the podcast. This is an absolute pleasure.
No problem. Thank you for showing up.
Sure, not a problem. All right. You have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon.
You,
All right. Bye.
Emily, you want to take us out of here?
I'd like to thank Jeff for joining us today, and everybody else who's tuned in. We are here every Friday at 4:00 Central, 5 Eastern, and I'd love to have you join us as a guest or join us on the show. Please let us know if you are interested, and also to check out all of our social media: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and so on, as well as the different people that we've been working with, like Marcus Harvard, Transform Media, Zach Lane of the Pack Channel, Jay Stone of the Disability Channel, Lawrence Wingate of Wingate Studios, and Earl Williams of Midwest Plans and Podcast. Great work that they're doing. And so, until next time, everybody has a safe and productive week, and to